This basil plant has grown way too tall and out of control. Today, I'm going to show you how to prune it. My name's Mark, and I'd love for you to join me. Come on, we got to grow. Okay, let's talk about pruning. Now, I'm not the best person to play Trivial Pursuit with. I don't remember dates or random facts or names very well. And I don't know why that is, I just always have been that way. But I love to learn by understanding, and that's how I really retain information. So I'm going to teach you today about pruning in the context of something called pigments. And it's going to help you understand why you're pruning the plant the way you are, and what's okay in pruning and what's not. So let's begin. We're going to look at this basil plant, and we can see that it has these beautiful dark green leaves on the top. But as you look further down the plant, you've got some yellowing, some light green and yellowing leaves. And then you've even got, near the bottom, you've even got some of these brown leaves, basically dead leaves. And we're going to talk a little bit about why the leaves are green, and why the leaves are yellow, and why the leaves are brown. The green leaves are full of something called chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is a pigment. And chlorophyll is highly efficient at creating chemical energy from sunlight energy, or light energy. And these pigments reflect green light. So chlorophyll reflects green. That's why plants are mostly green, because they have chlorophyll. Now, what about the leaves as you move further down, these yellowing leaves? Why are they yellow and not green? Well, the chlorophyll in those leaves has started to break down. There's not as much chlorophyll doing the job of converting that light energy to chemical energy. And it makes sense because these leaves are right at the top, right near the grow light. There's a lot of intense light there. And as you move further down the plant, there's less and less light. It's shaded by the upper canopy, and it's not getting as much light energy near the bottom. Now, that may be part of the reason why some of these leaves are yellowing. The plant is saying, you know what? There's not a lot of light down here. Let's do something else with those leaves. I'm not going to get into that, but just to say that the amount of light the leaf is receiving may have something to do with how much chlorophyll it has. So chlorophyll is highly efficient at photosynthesis, whereas another pigment found in plant leaves is called carotenoids. And a very popular common carotenoid is beta-carotene. And beta-carotene, actually, we think of that, we think of what vegetable? An orange vegetable, typically, although it can be yellow or green or blue, is the carrot. We're talking about carrots. And the word carrot actually inspired the word carotenoids, because it was first, this pigment was first isolated in carrots, first isolated by science in carrots. And so we see the yellowing leaves, and we're just going to think of a yellow carrot, because that'll help in our analogy in understanding this. So we have a yellow carrot, and the reason we're seeing these yellowing leaves is because chlorophyll has broke down, and there's not as much chlorophyll reflecting green light. Now we have the yellow light is being reflected from the carotenoids in the leaves. Then we move to brown leaves, like this one here, or this leaf, which has gone basically from light green to yellow to brown. The brown leaves are actually a result of tannins, which is another composition of the plant. And tannins are actually what breaks down, and the byproduct from tannins, the waste product from tannins, is that brown color that you're seeing. And the brown color actually is basically the leaf has dried out, the cell walls have broken down, the chlorophyll has broken down, the carotenoids have broken down, and we have very dried out dead leaves. And so you can think, because this is the waste product of the tannins in the leaf, we can think of that as, well, poop. So think about the forest floor. There's animals on the forest floor, pooping on the forest floor, and we also have our plants are pooping on the forest floor. Interesting way to remember it, but that's what we're going to go with. So we have the green leaves. Green for go means lots of chlorophyll, lots of energy being produced by the light, being converted into chemical energy for the plant. Yellow leaves, not as efficient. Carotenoids can help with photosynthesis. They do play a role, but not near as efficient or as much as chlorophyll. And so now we have a picture in our mind of why the leaves are different colors. And that's going to guide us as we prune this plant. Okay, time for science lesson number 2. We're going to talk about cytokinins and how it applies to pruning. So we want to prune this plant for more lateral growth. We want it to stop growing up and grow out. If you were the sun or my grow light, what do you see? You see a lot of top leaves. You see a lot of these leaves on the top. You don't see as much the leaves underneath in the canopy or under the canopy. So this is actually what we want to accomplish. We want to open it up so more light can reach more leaves, more chlorophyll, more photosynthesis. That's our goal. So cytokinins are a hormone in plants. It's actually they're the ones responsible for lateral growth, shoots, and leaves. So when we increase the cytokinins, we encourage bushier, leafier growth and lateral growth, exactly what we want. One of the ways you can do that is by topping. So we could take this stem right here and top it right there. And we're going to do that in just a little bit. What that does is removes the top of the plant. Now, why is that important for cytokinins? Well, the top of the plant actually has lots of auxins, and auxins suppress the cytokinins. By topping it, we're removing those auxins and allowing those cytokinins to really kick into gear and produce that nice lateral growth. And also what this does is when you top it here, you're actually pushing that hormone down into this leaf node, which is just below it, where you've cut, and they will actually form 2 new stems. Those shoots will actually go out laterally. So we're actually creating more stems, more growth. It's really the best way, and you've seen probably many people showing you how to do this. Do you understand why? I hope you do. Cytokinins. Another way to actually increase cytokinins is through applying some sort of phytoplankton. This is Marfal's soil enhancer. This will actually go into the soil and into the roots where the cytokinins are actually produced. And that will actually encourage, again, that cytokinin production, and you get more growth. So the other way to do it is by low stress training. And I had to just look at my notes there because I couldn't remember what the term was. It's LST, or low stress training. By bending the stem like this, we're actually inducing a little bit of stress to the plant. And that will actually encourage it to produce more cytokinins. And you'll notice as well, as we pivot this to a 90-degree angle, we're actually encouraging more lateral growth just physically by bending the stem. Now, of course, over time, if you bend it here, it will actually bend up because that's where the light is. It will always try to follow the light and seek it out. So that's our lesson on cytokinins. Now, how do we apply it? How do we apply our lesson on cytokinins? And how do we apply our first lesson on pigments? Well, let's look at our basil plant. The first thing we want to do is decide how we're going to prune it. And there are a couple things we can prune for. Number one, we can prune for that lateral growth. We can prune for more growth, bushier growth, which means better, bigger harvest. We can also prune for aesthetics. We can prune off some of these yellowing leaves, some of these dying leaves. We can also prune for things like disease control or pest control. By pruning our plant, we're actually able to open up the plant to get more airflow, which is actually going to reduce your stuff that likes still environments, like your molds and your funguses. We're also going to be able to see more of the pests on our plant as we do that. So opening it up is a really good idea. And actually, this is found in nature. I always wonder, how much do I want to bully or control my plant? A part of me kind of just wants to let it grow. It's nature. Let it do its thing. I don't want to interfere. But if you think about nature, and you think about a forest floor, plants growing on the forest floor, there's all kinds of mammals in the forest. And what do they want? Food. What's food for a lot of herbivores? Plants. So they're going to come in here and they're going to eat these bottom leaves. And so they're actually going to prune the plant. In nature, it happens. And by doing that, they're actually perpetuating the life cycle, but they're also opening up that plant for more airflow, again, preventing some of those diseases. So we're going to do that as well. So we're actually going to prune this plant back quite a bit. And we're going to start with my trusty garden, I call them garden scissors. I got them at the hardware store. And what I love about these is they fold up and go in my pocket. Now, I could put them in my pocket like that, but I'll probably get stabbed. This is much better. This is by far the most handy thing I have ever put on my keychain. From spring to late fall, this is in my pocket 24/7. Actually, no. 18, 12, however many hours a day I'm awake and not sleeping in my bed. So we're going to use those. We're going to prune this plant back. And you're going to come along with me because I want you to see not just why it's done, but how it's done. Let's start snipping. What we want to do with this plant is we want to cut off no more than about 1/3 of the plant. We want to make sure that it's still got enough leaves to do some nice down-home, good old-fashioned photosynthesis. So we actually probably want to cut maybe, if we're looking at this plant, let's just say if we put it like this, we can actually kind of see it as one big pillar, and that would be 1/3, 2/3. So we want to cut off probably most everything from here. And all we're going to do is we're just going to start clipping. So what we want to do is actually clip right above a leaf node. Now, we want to leave at least 2 nodes below where we clip. Now, that's not a rule, it's just a guideline. And we're going to follow that guideline to kind of remove most of the top of this plant. So we're going to go right here. Now, make sure you use a sharp pair of scissors. If you leave kind of a beaten up stem, that actually creates a condition where it can be more prone to getting disease. So these have been sterilized with alcohol. Now I'm going to go in. And I would say if you're going to sterilize with alcohol, it doesn't hurt to just spray some, but I would actually say leave them in the alcohol for at least 30 seconds to make sure you've killed off any contaminants on the scissors. So we're going to come in right here and we are going to just clip right there like that. Same thing on this one. We're actually going to go down to right about here. And you know what? If you're a little bit leery about clipping your plant, you're concerned you're going to take too much off and kill it, then take it slow. Get used to the fact, if this is your first time doing this, get used to the fact that you're actually clipping a plant. We're just going to keep going through here, clipping all of these down. This one actually can go all the way down to there. This one will go to here. This I did about a week ago. No, maybe 2 weeks ago now. Just for you folks. I clipped this in preparation for this video. And you can see that's where I clipped it. Right there. Just above that leaf node. And look what happened. Those 2 stems, those shoots, are now actually turning into stems. And they are growing out and laterally. And look how much more growth there is here. So we're just going to keep trimming. So we learned previously about cytokinins, and that's what we've done with our plant now, is we've increased those cytokinins by cutting off the top. And do you remember what it was that's in the top leaves of the plant? Auxins. So we've removed those auxins by clipping these off. They're all in here. I'm going to eat some of those auxins just because I don't like tall, leggy plants, but I do like basil. The other thing we're going to look at now is removing some of these dying and dead leaves. And remember, again, we've got a nice little leaf in here. This leaf is yellowing, turning lighter green. Eventually it'll go yellow and or brown and fall off, as many of these leaves, this leaf down here in the bottom has. For aesthetics, I'm just going to pinch that off. I'm going to go through, and this one actually has some brown dots starting on it. That means the chlorophyll has broken down. That means the tannins are actually starting to produce that waste, that brown spots. So we're going to pull that off. It's probably not doing much for the plant. Yes, there's probably a little bit of photosynthesis going on, but not as much as we have over here in this really dark green leafy growth that's growing laterally. So this one here, again, we could pull off this leaf, pick off some of the lighter green leaves. Use your discretion. Go for the leaves that look kind of wilty. Just get rid of some of those. Pick them off. Well, we did it. We applied our knowledge of pigments and cytokinins, and we pruned our basil. And I have to say, I'm happy with it. I think it's happy. We'll see in time if this thing grows out big and bushy. Science tells me that it will. And we'll follow up when that happens. You'll get to see what this turns into. I kind of like these little side shoots. They're growing on me. No pun intended. I took a little more than a third. This is what I took off. And it's quite a bit. Probably more like half. Maybe even more than half. Don't do that. Limit your pruning to about a third and you'll be fine. Perhaps what I've done here is made a grave mistake and this is going to die, but better you learn from me than do it yourself. Thanks for growing along with me on this one. I hope you learned something. Until next time, I gotta grow. Or munch. I think I'll just munch.